So my background is in advanced deep space and interstellar space flight, mostly vacuum-like propulsion for the use of general relativity theory, quantum field theory, as well as advanced nuclear propulsion like nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. And beamed energy propulsion, which I worked on as a principal investigator for the Air Force Research Lab in Airborne Aerospace. So I've got quite a broad background. And I began my work in UFOs, where UAP started in 1996. Robert Bigelow hired me to work for him as his director of aerospace physics and astrophysics at the National Institute of Discovery Science. And that was a pretty transformative job for me, because as a physical scientist, I'm seeing for the first time live phenomena. I'm investigating it using forensic science techniques in the field, interviewing witnesses, collecting data. And I have a team of colleagues on the staff that I work with, also PhDs. And we had a world-class science advisory board, which my former boss in Austin, Hal Puff, was on that science advisory board and was the last chair of that board, actually. We also had Apollo 14 astronaut Ed Mitchell, and for a short time Apollo 17 astronaut Jack Schmidt. And we had many academicians and former CIA National Intelligence officers, social psychologists, medical doctors, and nuclear engineers, and the list goes on. We had Chuck Boldy primarily as well. So it was really transformative because I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I became familiar with Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan and Astronomer Gordon Page co-authored a book called UFOs, A Scientific Debate, which was published by the AAAS Press. The AAAS is the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and science is their prestigious journal that they publish. And so that was a prestigious publication. Every chapter was authored by experts in the field in academia who have studied UFOs and some angle of it from a scientific data standpoint. Data that was collected, data that was analyzed. And so they presented it and published a book. For a bizarre reason, in the 1980s, Carl Sagan had this wonderful astronomy show called Cosmos, and we companion book for that. And what's ironic is that he changed 180 degrees. He all of a sudden went from being UFOs we had in this book that I co-authored or co-edited with Gordon Page, all of this wonderful data that's been collected that's not explainable due to conventional astronomical, weather, or man-made explanations or events or objects. I'm now calling it pseudoscience. It's fair science. People are mistaken. Pilots have poor vision, military pilots especially. And I heard that from Leonard David, who's a aerospace engineering, aviation, space exploration writer. And people like him have said that our military pilots, especially the ones at the USS Nimitz, during its encounters of the Tic Tac UAP back in November 2004. Oh, yes, those pilots had poor vision. They're flying, $20 million fighter aircraft? And they have poor vision. How did they get them the Naval Aviation Program in gun school with poor vision?
Dr. Davis, could you elaborate a little bit on your, again, to the degree that you're talking?
So it was a transformative issue for me, or a job. It transformed my worldview. It opened up my worldview to a lot more possibilities. And when I was used to thinking as a trained PhD physicist, I earned my doctorate in astrophysics at the University of Arizona in 1999. And so I worked on 3 space missions in graduate school. IRAS, which is the Infrared Astronomical Satellite Program, and 2 Voyager missions to the outer. So it's pertaining to the topic that Lou was. I'm not trying to avoid it. It is a sensitive subject. So it's due to astronaut Ed Mitchell, Dr. Ed Mitchell, captain of the USN, retired. Because of him, and I won't go into the long story, but it's because of him that I got on the trail of looking for the so-called legend within the UFO community. The retrieval of crashed or landed UAP craft, or UFO craft, as they've been known back in those days. And by the way, UAP, the term unidentified aerial phenomenon, goes back to the 1940s even. So I followed this trail, and I ended up over the course of the following 2.5 decades, working for Bigelow, working for the Air Force Research Lab, working for Halfenoff at Urtech International Incorporated, and then working at the Aerospace Corporation. So we're working in a combination of industry and classified programs that we were contracted to do on behalf of for the Defense Intelligence Agency and for the Pentagon agencies that Lou worked at, and the UAP task force that Jay Stratton led at the Office of Naval Intelligence. And so a long story short is that I came into contact with industry leaders, technical scientists, both active duty and later retired, as well as intelligence officers, generals, admirals, colonels, people who directed intelligence or human intelligence collection and analysis directorates at the DIA and the Central Intelligence Agency, who reached out to me to have me do some foreign UAP intelligence analysis and assessment. And so I had been exposed to so much in the classified world that I can tell you definitively that there is there. The human race, basically the world's biggest governments, like the United States, our adversary China and Russia, at least as far as I know, have had the occasion to recover craft that have either landed or crashed or both in their territory or even outside of their territories, and have taken those back to the most sensitive of their programs that they've ever had. These programs are even more sensitive and more well-hidden than the Manhattan Project was, or the modern nuclear weapons industry and the U.S. military and the Department of Energy programs to maintain and upgrade and modernize our nuclear weapons arsenal. And so this is one of the most well-hidden programs. It is hidden from congressional oversight and always has been. And it was hidden by the action of President Eisenhower, who instituted presidential emergency action directives during his administration. These directives are not shared with Congress. They were classified. And when the Freedom of Information Act was instituted in the 70s, those are not subjected to the Freedom of Information Act request. These directives provide cover for actions that are associated with the retrieval of these vehicles and the scientific and engineering study of them. And that takes place within the industry. What happens is the Department of Defense offices, CIA offices, they create shell companies. They give a sole source contract to the shell company who passes the money to a selected group of defense industry firms. And those firms will take that contract money and turn it around and use that as internal funding. It's called internal research and development funds, which they give to their own people inside their company, their own employees, to do the reverse engineering and analysis and study of these recovered vehicles. And so this avoids all congressional oversight. It avoids the game debate. And it's one of the most clever techniques used to hide it. And as far as I know, only one 4-star general and one 3-star Adam and Gray will locate these programs. And that's about as much as I could say. They located the programs and they uncovered them. One got a lot of resistance and hostile reception and was told that he found who he was looking for. They were who they were suspected of being. Yes, they were a UFO UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. The other one had a lot more political power behind here because of his staff as a 4-star general. And he was able to get into the program and use his authority and his access. I think they call that a super user. The super user have access to all. It's the way it has all special access programs. So he had his capability to get into that whole thing. I was fortunate to meet Dave Dresch at the behest of Jay Stratton. Dave was a NRO liaison officer to the UAP task force, and Dave was working for his boss of the NRO, which is situated in the second floor skiffs of the Aerospace Corporation building, Colorado Springs. And I was assigned to work at the Aerospace Corporation facility in Huntsville, Alabama, because I was supporting NASA's Space Nuclear Propulsion Program office. So Dave and Dave's boss and I together, and I briefed them for 2.5 days, just a week before COVID struck. And Dave took all of my classified and proprietary information of all the investigations I did at MINS, AFRO, and working for helping up at ERTEC, and he took that data and ran with it. And what you now know, the aftermath of that was his classified whistleblower complaint to the IG of the IC. And so there is a there. We have had this program going on in various guises, various code names. Code names change roughly every 3 years. They often shipped around to the major office and program at the organizations for presidential administration, maybe every 5 to 10 years in some cases. And so these things are very old. They come in, they've gone, but they're still around. And the validating that's been involved, I would say, since the beginning in 1944 with the first recovery in Italy of U.S. Army's recovery of the craft that crashed in Italy back in 1933. The United States Army that invaded Italy and pushed the Third Reich out. They were able to recover that craft and bring it back to Wright Airfield. And all of the crash retrievals that have taken place generally on land have gone to Wright Airfield. The majority of the crash retrievals or recoveries in whatever situation it was take place in the maritime environment. And I'm not sure where that is going. I think they're probably also wondering what were in those days Wright Airfield. I don't know what they're going today, though, because I've only worked on the legacy history of this part of it up until about the early 2010s. And ever since the end of the MASAL and the ATIP, I don't know where those operations are going on these days. So I think that's about it.
Is that it?
And also a question I always ask, and I'll just say this boy, he's Leslie King and Ralph Blumenthal asked me this for an interview I gave them in July of 2020 for the New York Times article they published. They interviewed Lou and former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. I think Harry was already retired then, wasn't he? Yeah. Okay, so I said basically my interface with the leadership of the industry, which were a number of individuals, is the following. The craft that have been recovered are not in the CERN. They're not made by human beings. They are not from this planet. They are not human. They are an alien technology, whatever the word alien means. Are they extraterrestrial? We don't know. We don't know. What motives do they have? Well, we need anthropologists and social psychologists and philosophers to figure that out, and they had to communicate that to us. So this is just like me and Abhi. We cannot answer questions like motive. We just need to take data. We call it measurements and signals intelligence in the intelligence industry. And Abhi, I support 1,000% because we need him to do what he needs to do. UAPX is another group from the University of Albany and Albany, New York. They're doing that as well. And there are other groups out there building up their own sensor suites, trying to scan the sky full-time, 24/7 to look for something that's high, and definitely not weather, definitely not an aircraft, definitely not a kid's blue fun cock.
I want to ask about materials and energy as well.
We speculate. These things are so far advanced, we can only speculate. The best speculation I can come up with is General Tip. He does a great job predicting something like a warp bubble. UAPs do exhibit the phenomenon of sublight or less than light speed warp bubbles. However, that becomes a challenge when we talk about UAP that dive into the ocean and climb up out of the from into the ocean and up in the air. So
it's not warping space-time.
It's a warp in space-time, yeah. That's described on Einstein's general theory of, yeah. And so the problem is...
Gravity warps space-time.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So these objects are changing space-time around them.
Yeah, they, the thin shell with the energy and the type of energy it has to be, would have to be negative energy density. It'd be consistent with the type of energy density that you can create in foreign vacuum. And examples of that of Casimir Kaliki that has a little vacuum region that's bound by the two plates of the cavity. There's also squeeze states of light where that's a laser beam where you're going to take some part of canonical noise fluctuations for that part of the beam you're not interested in and pile it up elsewhere in the phase space, and this is getting very technical. So I'll just kind of keep it this way. You're going to take the quantum vacuum fluctuation that we know is quantum noise shock waves and laser beams. You're going to pilot up somewhere else, but in an area you're not interested in measuring. And you only want to measure the amplitude of that beam. And at that point, where you take the quantum value fluctuations on that amplitude, that energy density goes negative. And the energy density, it's the square of the amplitude. So that goes negative. And that's an example of negative energy. The mass of the Earth creates space-time curvature.
If it was, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so that space-time curvature, which one feels the force of gravity on the surface of the Earth, drags down quantum vacuum fluctuations of the quantum fields that are out in space near the Earth, in the vicinity of the Earth. And that energy density happens to be negative. And so this is an example of theoretically predicting astronomical sources of negative energy as well as planetary sources of negative energy. So that's what you would need to build a workbook. And that's what you would need to build a instructor shell.
Just a brief comment of verification. We had two pillars of modern physics, quantum mechanics and Einstein's theory of gravity, which is curvature of space-time. We don't have a reliable theory that combines the quantum gravity. So what we are hearing is speculation. We do not have the knowledge to figure out if you can create curvature of space-time out of negative energy density because we have never mastered this. We don't have an understanding of that. So it's possible that, a millennium from now we'll have those quantum gravity engineers. That's possible. Currently, we're just like too primitive technologically to figure it out. The question is there something in possession of government that the scientists should look into? And, I would love to help government figure it out because it may guide us about a theory of quantum gravity. It's if we Tesla.
Yep. So we have set ideas about these things, and we can speculate on what the best approach to take to the warp bubble or these shell taking energy and create a true swarm, which will be a shortcut to space-time. He told two distant points. But we have craft in our possession. There are no physicists literally working in those programs. So basically mechanical, aerodynamics, aerospace, thermal control engineers, electrical engineers, and material scientists. And material science is a part of engineering. Usually overlaps chemistry as well. And they've never had a physicist like him or I. They've never had an applied physicist or an experimental physicist. And so they are really lacking in the ability to understand how was this, what this.
Sir, the latest program has been very insulated and insular, so unfortunately, it's a bit of my approach of it, a bit of an incestuous community. There's not a whole lot of outside involvement because it is so highly classified, and that's been some of the frustration and I think challenges, technologically speaking, because we haven't been able to recently apply new talents, new ideas, new theories to what the U.S. government may be in possession of.
What about the energy potential?
The energy is a question of kind of
So Jimmy's were saying, right?
yeah, I haven't been able to access that.
Dr. Davis, can you talk for a moment, about the Nimitz incident, the calculations for the object to go from 80,000 feet within less than a second, 50 feet over the water? What type of energy required talk about?
Hundreds of times the total electrical energy produced in the United States had it. That's the kind of energy that is representative of the observed features and performances of UAP craft, especially KidTap, that the Nimitz encounter, you remember, of 2004. And so it's hundreds and hundreds of times what the United States produces annually in less power. And so that compares really well with interstellar spacecraft that will triple relativistic or ultra-relativistic being anywhere from 90 to 99% like the energy is astronomically huge. So these craft, I don't have the security clearances I need to get access to the technical details that I made to understand that the craft are consistent in size with the Tic Tac, even double in size of the Tic Tac. That would be up to about 100 feet long by 50 feet diameter of that type. A boomerang-shaped craft, arrow-shaped craft, triangular-shaped craft, and so forth. The biggest ones that had been observed, especially that we investigated in Edmonds in 1999, involving Sky Air Force Base. That way, it was a 600-foot long craft, and it was now roughly 100 feet tall. And So they don't have possession of craft like that. I've never been told that. It's usually the more man scale.
So they couldn't move.
Yeah.
So we might be able to.
Yeah, so we can only speculate. I know Jim Kasky wrote in his book. I don't remember the time of it, but anyway, it was Colin Kelder, Wayne Russell, Midge, and George Knapp of KLAS TV in Las Vegas. And so Jim mentioned, and Jim is the program manager for the AAS, the OSAT, the AAS WAP, and so basically he described in his book, somebody, I don't know if it was him because I think he said it was him, went inside one of these craft that he had access to, and they couldn't recognize any propulsion or power devices or systems inside the craft. It was completely unusual. Travis Taylor and I have speculated that possibly they're teleporting energy from a remote, distant location where the energy is produced based on according to the craft. And that's how the craft can move around without having to carry propellant or rocket engine or an advanced warp drive engine. That's one possibility that we speculate.
On the material, so what you have, you think is carbon can take multiple forms, right? And are you saying that is the same with other material, other elements? The way in which what we found is different
Forms of these elements that it would be different calories. It'd be different combinations of the elements.
Is that I see the big ratios as well, correct?
So you're going to have a variety of whatever structural part of this that came off of the EDP. I don't know because I didn't have way better adult SAP access. I only had TSSCI. So at the SCI level, I was informed that there would be combinations of elements from the periodic table, combinations of their isotopes. So you have a variety of elements as they naturally occur, or some isotopes have been mixed together in a certain way, and then they're structurally built in a very unusual way that even today we have no equivalent or analog to it. So this is about as much as I was given information in this.
And then, do you have or can you comment on whatever species have been the piloting these craft?
how are they large? Are they multiple species? Are they like, what was their size and how many are usually on a craft?
They're typically the multiple species. People are really like the grays and mordays. People were talking about reptilians and insectoids. It's not that they're reptilian or insectoid. It's that they resemble to the presidium of reptile or an insect type human world, because they have this a hand, four limbs, and torso.
So large, small,
Human size, human scale.
and other how big are crew?
Well, the Greys I'm familiar with from investigating the crash at Coronia, which is misnamed the crash of Roswell. It's not the crash of Roswell, it's the crash of Perovia, Mexico. Those were Greys, those were both tall. And the Nordics are typically human size, probably, I try 5-6 feet tall. And same with the people who mislabel reptilian and insectoid, they're roughly that top height too. I haven't heard anything about anything 7 great feet, 9 feet tall. Well, that I mean, tree